Unstable Vitals is the podcast that takes the pulse of American healthcare, and the prognosis is critical. Dr. Adam Brown and Dr. Lara Zibners, physicians turned entrepreneurs and business leaders, expose why the system is unraveling before our eyes.
Well, listen, I'm so excited to be here. This is another episode of Unstable Vitals, and I'm here with Justin McKay from RadCare Services. We're going to talk about him a little bit, but as we know, it's about Lara and me. So, we're going to, Justin, it's good to welcome you to our world, but we'll talk about you in a second. Lara, what have you been doing in the last few days?
Yeah, and I'm Lara Zibners. I'm the co-host of Unstable Vitals. Adam usually forgets to mention me.
Not true.
I'm doing great because I moved house last week, and there's nothing I enjoy more than moving house.
Can I just call out for a moment, Justin? We're Americans, right? And Laura is this dually person living in like the U.S. and Austria and London. Do you notice that move house? Do we really say that in the U.S.? We don't say that. We say we're moving.
Yeah, but if I'm moving, that could be it right there. I just moved.
Hey,
moved house.
No, now listen, when you're from the country like I am, okay, move house means sometimes you see someone's house and or a trailer cruising down.
Okay, but Justin, back in your corner because we haven't introduced you yet.
Yeah, this is true. Okay, so
I moved house, and I'd like you to look at my new office because our new flat came with like a mother-in-law suite kind of thing. So now I have a place that the children don't even know where it is. They've never been in it. They don't have keys to it.
I think that is the value prop right there. Kids,
the number of
no
times
keys.
we have filmed with a child under the desk. Anyway, so I'm doing pretty good. And then the thing about unpacking is that you find things. So I found these glasses I bought. I don't know.
I like the color.
I think they're for really old people because they come around the back of your head and they snap right there.
Okay.
But I think they don't know. I don't think anyway, you find a lot of shit.
Yeah, you do when you move house.
When you move house.
Yeah.
And I agree that I have been behind enough houses being moved in the great states of America.
Yeah. Well, okay, enough about us. Yes, Laura.
What are you doing? Because that was all about me. What are you up to?
Oh, I've got an epic travel schedule coming up in the next few weeks. A couple of conferences I'm excited about. We want to talk with Justin about one of his conferences that he just came back from. But I've got a MedTech conference in Dublin. I'm kind of excited about that. And then Tech Week in London is coming up. And then so like some really cool kind of innovator space stuff that's happening in the healthcare world that I'm very excited to learn more about. Oh, and I'm speaking at Cambridge University. Like, who would have ever thought a kid from Eastern North Carolina would be doing that? So it's kind of exciting stuff happening. So
that's very exciting. Are you?
But anyway, enough about us. Enough about us.
Are you going to drive? Because you have to drive on the other side of the road.
I'm not going to drive, and they have these things called trains that are very well connected.
They're way better. Yeah, Europe's awesome for trains.
I'm going to take a train. Well, listen, Unstable Vitals, we're trying to solve some of the problems in healthcare, and we're talking about people that are trying to solve them through various different activities. And so some people are policymakers, some people are doctors, nurses, hospital CEOs and administrators. Some people are producers of healthcare, those that are making new widgets and innovations and technologies, and some are in the insurance industry. So there's a lot of different people that are trying to affect healthcare in a positive way and also assist with making it less unstable, so making it more stable. So one of those individuals I wanted to introduce today was my good friend Justin McKay from RadCare Services. He's the founder of RadCare Services from the great state of Indiana. For those that don't know, that sits between the East Coast and the West Coast. And
next to Ohio, where I spent 10 years.
Yeah, this is also true. This is true. So we are so excited to have you on, Justin, to talk with you about what you're doing and what problems you're trying to solve.
And I'm just going to say, when Adam told me what you do, I was like, how come no one's done that before? And that is so nasty. Thank God for you.
Yeah, so Justin, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit of who you are and what you're doing.
Yeah, first, thanks so much for having me on this platform. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a great conversation. And Laura, I promise this will not be boring. I'm high energy. And you may have to put me back in my corner a couple more times.
Don't worry, I'm an unhinged middle-aged woman. Don't worry.
I love it. This is going to be great.
Back in that corner.
I would. That's a validated statement. So
Thanks so much. Thanks so much for having me on. I appreciate both your consideration and your support. And yeah, I'm Justin McKay, Lara, Adam's friend and colleague, if you will, and in some capacity. And yeah, hey, so my story or my background is, hey, I love unstable vitals, the discussions you all are having about healthcare, current state of healthcare, where healthcare is going. And so for me, I'm outnumbered here. Okay, I can't keep up with the two doctors in the room. I'm not a physician or a provider, but hey, I was one who was a supporter. So I worked in the perioperative space with in orthopedics, as a sales rep. And so you travel, you're covering ortho cases, you're covering trauma cases, and the dreaded vendor rack, where you go in, here, that vendor rack's here, let's go, chop, chop, we got to move. And it always, the garments always smelled like cologne, perfume. They were stained, they were decrepit, broken buckles, torn straps, and just disrepair, if you will. And so early on in my career, Adam, I should stop back. I should stop for a second. Am I going too fast, too deep here,
well,
Adam?
no, I think I probably should have introduced a little bit more about what RadCare does. And RadCare at a very high level takes lead aprons that we all have worn, whether at the dentist or us as clinicians have worn it in the hospital or emergency physicians, anytime they bring in radiology equipment to protect ourselves or protect patients from radiation, we put on these lead aprons. And they're heavy.
And you put them over, you often put them over your like protective gown. So they're like the front line. And when you start talking about, and they're always ratty, and there's always a broken strap.
And some of them
nobody ever thinks about what you're about to tell us.
Yeah. So take me, I think, Justin, probably like if saying this, Laura and I are very much used to wearing these lead aprons. You were working in operating rooms as a sales rep, having to go in, quickly grab whatever available apron was available to you to protect yourself. And so take me back to that moment of when you're like, Houston, we have a problem. And what were you doing to try to, what did you immediately kind of see?
Well, man, right out of the jump, I was like, Houston, we have a problem. And what I mean there is, you go through training, when you're learning product, if it's an implant, plates, screws, whatever you're going to be, whatever widget you're going to be representing, you go through intense training. I mean, hours and hours and quizzing and testing and so forth before you ever step foot into an OR for observation and training and so forth. I'll never, ever forget my first time stepping into an OR, like as a, wet behind the ears, greenhorn, in training. They wheel the C-arm into the room and someone hands me an apron and there's no strap, no buckle. This thing's torn off. I said, how am I supposed to secure this or put this on? And this woman goes, don't worry, sweetie. Just hold it up in front of you and try to hide behind it. Just try to hide behind it. Or you can just stand behind me. And I'm like, okay, wait a second. I'm in a very prestigious, well-known Billboard university. And this is the kind of crap that's taking place behind the scenes. Give me a break, man.
Yeah, I mean, like I certainly have been in the trauma situation where there weren't enough aprons, or like a patient comes in and they're bringing in this C-arm thing to kind of see like where is the bullet, where is their air, where are their broken bones, and that same thing has happened where it's like the nurse is like, oh, just stand behind me really quickly.
I've done that.
Yeah.
Or you jump like 2 feet away as if that's going to make you feel better. You hide behind somebody. You step off like 3 inches to the left because that'll protect you from radiation.
I mean, and maybe there's still slight protection, but the fact is it's still not truly fixed. And so, so Justin, that was kind of the environment you're working, sales rep, selling ortho equipment in an operating room. You're having to use these aprons, but then take me back to the moment where you really said, okay, there's a bigger problem here. These things are nasty.
It's gonna make
Absolutely. There's a twofold answer there, Adam. So one, but that was my first initial impression of lead. Like, come on, you got to be kidding me. And then, so I traveled for about a year and I would be in New York, I'd be in Texas, Florida. And so for about a year, I was quietly just observing or studying. And so if I was in a small rural standalone or a large academic, level 1 trauma teaching, wherever I went, whatever state I went to, I always asked the question. And I would find the peri-op director, or I would find the radiology director. Oftentimes radiology might be who dictates the policy for these garments. So I would just track these folks down, and I was kind of doing some market research, and nobody anywhere had a protocol, a cleaning system, compliance, records. And I mean, Lara used the word ratty. I mean, these things are, pardon my language, they're a shit show, across the U.S. And so I'll never forget, Adam, like when your question of, hey, when did this really hit in that something needs to be done here? I got a ringworm on my neck. And, my business partner, he and I have been friends for 30 plus years. And so I'm at the Walgreens waiting on my prescription. My neck is nasty and gross. And, he had a little fun with me. We've been buddies for a long time. They called in a prescription for yeast infection medication for women. He had a blast with that, giving me a hard time about that. But I called, I said, dude, seriously? Like every hospital we work in, they're disgusting. And, we've seen blood, vomit, fecal stains, unknown stains, splatter, cologne, perfume, just a potpourri of funk, And I'm like,
Potpourri of funk. We're going to have that on the back of a new T-shirt.
I love that, a potpourri of funk. I think I really like that a lot. I love the potpourri of funk. We really should think about that as a T-shirt. I'm thinking.
No, I think we need season 2 T-shirts and a potpourri of funk.
Yeah.
It's a great follow-up to a Code Brown.
This is right. It's totally a Code Brown follow-up. I really, really like that a lot. So Justin, okay, so you're working the OR, gross, grody, as we used to use when I was in high school. Grody, aprons, broken aprons, and then you get a yeast infection, ringworm, and it's like, okay.
Those are not the same.
I know.
Tinea corporis is not Candida albicans. Like, get your fungus.
They're all tinea, Laura.
Yeah, but let's just be clear.
They are tinea.
Yeah, okay, clear, fine.
Candidiasis is not a tinea, is it?
Oh, no, it's not. That's right. What am I thinking
tinea
about?
versicolor, tinea alba, tinea, corporis. And
Candida albicans is totally separate. Never mind.
Right, they're yeast. It's different. But same medication.
But same medication.
I didn't think you had like a cheesy discharge coming out of your neck.
No.
It was more like a little round ring that itched, and it was scaly.
It was scaly, and it did have some fluid though. It was scaly with some fluid, and it was fairly gross.
It could have been a mixed thing, Laura. Who knows? It could have been Candida, but I don't know. Point here is you got fungus, among us, and funk. You got a potpourri of funk.
You were a fun guy.
Yeah.
Boom.
Boom. So now we're like, if I can get this infection, there's probably other funk that could be on these things.
Yeah. I met a provider from Michigan shortly after I got this. And he said, I've always thought that he was an IR provider. He said, I've always thought these things were gross. I just cultured 25 of them at random. And I said, no way, man. Tell me more. And he said, well, 21 of the 25 were carrying staph A, 3 of which was later confirmed to be MRSA. And then 21 of the 25 were also carrying ringworm. And he said, I thought that was pretty remarkable. And I'm like, well, been there, done that, buddy. No shock here. I already got the T-shirt and the sticker.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the moment where you decided to leave the security of what you were doing? Because becoming a founder of a startup is the definition of an insanity. What was the moment where you decided you just had enough and this was such a problem you were going to throw your sanity out the window and do something about it?
Yep. And let me tell you, as a co-founder, I did about everything you can wrong. And we'll talk about that in a little bit in terms of trying to start a family and a business at the same time, leaving a VP of sales job and going 2 years with no paycheck. There's a lot of insanity there. But the moment that just told me flat out, I'm jumping in head first, I'm resigning. We're going to figure this out. I was kind of moonlighting. Okay. So I was working my day job, and then I was taking some meetings and doing some research. And so I got invited to a meeting, or a surgical director took a meeting with me. And I showed up with my first little PowerPoint. And Laura, I use ATP testing as a part of my quality metric. And so I sit down, very well-known billboard academic, level 1, the whole shooting match. And she says, I've been here 35 years. This sounds like snake oil to me. I've never heard this. Everyone knows they're dirty and everyone knows they're gross. But no one's making me do this. And why should I pay money for this? And she's going through this whole litany of crap. And so I said, fine, give me a bunny suit. Let's go back in the OR together. I'm taking my ATP, and let's find one of your busy docs or your lead tech, someone who's in that lab every day. And so I said, let's go do an ATP test right now. And little did she know, I had stopped at the gas station on the way, and the gas pump handle I thought was nasty. And so just for grins, I ATP'd the gas pump handle, and I took photos of and so it read like 100,000 RLUs. That's a relative light unit. And that's pretty gross. And so I took a photo of that, went down the road. And so she kind of irritated me. And so I said, let's just go. And we walk back in there. I get a bunny suit. We go to one of her providers, right next to the pocket on a 3/4 frontal apron, ATP, 930,000. And so she's like, well, is that bad? And so I just show her my phone. I'm like, well, here's a gas pump handle, at a gas station. And it's 100,000 RLUs. And one of your busiest ortho docs is 930,000 RLUs. So we're almost 10 times dirtier than a gas pump handle. So I don't care if you believe in the PowerPoint or not, this stuff is nasty. And so 6 months later, she still wouldn't take a call. She didn't follow up with me, and she was blowing me off. And honestly, it lit a fire in my belly that, hey, you know what? This is stupid. If 100,000 people are dying of hospital-acquired infections every year, and we've seen the blood, we've seen the vomit, we've seen the fecal, Adam, you mentioned trauma cases. How about in a trauma case where, hey, someone from the back chucks a thyroid collar up to the table, and they cover someone's junk, if you will?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then all of a sudden it gets chucked back to that person, and I watch it go right back on the rack.
Yep, it's totally true.
Okay, but right now I just am thinking about your home life and how annoying it must be to have you walking around the house criticizing the cleanliness of the kitchen. Do you check dinner? Are you the one going around the bathroom you have a mental illness?
I've got a halo. Lara, we can get my wife cued in here. I've got a halo. I would never be hard to live with. Okay.
Okay. Because right now I'm you're the guy who's white gloving the top of it.
Yeah. But I mean, that's such a great thing. I mean, you're okay, think about the number of people that are touching the gas handles. Ugh. And think about the people who are, people are coming from bathrooms, doing God knows what in their cars. They're sitting out there, birds pooping on, all kinds of schmutz and shit on a gas station handle.
And now let's go to gas stations for a minute, because I was just thinking, I really don't like to use the toilet at a gas station. That said, when my children and I have been road tripping across Europe, we tend to eat dinner most commonly at
a gas station. Yeah,
because
I know.
They've got schnitzel and pizza.
It's a thing. I know. It's basically like a Wawa or a Sheetz in the middle of Austria. What is the German word for it? I forgot. It's a Raststop.
Raststop.
Oh, okay. For rest.
So you just change the E to an A, and Raststop becomes Raststop.
Okay. Yes. So but think about this. You're sitting there. Gas stations are gross. I think most people know they're pretty damn gross. And then all of a sudden, you're walking into a hospital and you're showing head nurse supervisor, "Hey, look, gas stations are cleaner than your lead aprons that are coming in contact with patients, doctors, in what is supposed to be the most sterile, clean environment of the hospital."
Yeah.
And the response was, "Meh."
Okay, so I now believe there's a problem.
Yes.
right? So that is the problem. Now, what are we going to do about it?
Yeah. So that's kind of what I want to know is like, okay, so now there's the problem. You highlight it. Then how do you fix it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's hilarious too, because I love the fact I can speak freely on this podcast, by the way.
Yes.
So we spent, my business partner and I, we spent the next probably 6 to 8 months traveling to the garment manufacturing companies. And so we wanted to try to learn some do's and don'ts, if we were going to try to build a cleaning program. And, you've never met a kookier, more strange bunch of folks, some of them kind of like the Sopranos. Some of them, I'm not sure how you graduated high school, just an odd bunch. Okay. And the advice or the direction you would get from these people, just was all over the map. Like you'd go into one manufacturing facility and they'd say, don't use alcohol and don't use bleach. And they'd say, oh, but you can buy this wipe that we market. Would you like to buy our wipe? And you read the label, guess what's in the friggin' wipe? And,
Alcohol,
you get other
bleach.
people. Yeah.
I was going to
Other
say
people-
urine sterile.
Right.
Other people are like, well, you should use like palm olive, and a small brush, and you need to have ample drying space. And I'm like, dude, you guys don't eat this. And one guy specifically told me, very well-known manufacturing plant, his chief engineer said, man, I don't know. Look, we make garments. Okay. We're really good at making them and we really like selling them. And so I want to clean them. I want to repair them. I want to keep them in good condition. And so I wasn't trying to make them. And I think maybe at first it kind of irritated them that I wanted to prolong the life of them. I wanted to keep them in good condition. And really, it wasn't until I went to AORN, the surgical, group, to get some real direction on how to build a cleaning program and what a cleaning program would look like in terms of building best practices. So again, just a lot of bloody nose moments where, you're getting some direction and there's no one to copy from. And so think about the orthopedic world I grew up in. I used to spend time behind closed doors where when we were going to make whatever, well, here's the other 20 on the market. Here's the actual product. Here's the patent. So you got something to build from. And so when you're trying to do something that's never been done before, I mean, every piece of this has been, from scratch, and I laugh, Haley Adams, I said something to her the other day. I said, hey man, I was guided by God. I said, I was inspired, I was guided by God, inspired by Menards, my local hardware store, and fueled by Miller Lite.
So, very funny. I mean, and I think what's kind of interesting here is that like you identified the problem, it's gross, and then you really identified a secondary problem, and that is there's not really a standard that people were following on something that is touching so many critical people, patients and clinicians and support personnel, and of course in your case too, salespersons. Like there was not a standard, but you also recognize because you said something a minute ago that like you're looking at the buckles, you're looking at the integrity of the lead apron itself. So it's not just is it dirty and gross and is it going to make a patient sick? Is it going to make a clinician or whomever's wearing it sick? But are they actually preventing radiation exposure? Like, are there cracks? Are there things? And so tell me a little bit more about that now. So you've got now one problem was that
It's
they're
not just that they're gross. Now they're gross and ineffective.
There you go.
Yes, you're hitting it right there. Yeah, I spent our first several years in this business, Adam. We developed this obviously with Ringworm. We developed our process. Our cornerstone was cleaning, and we developed that with hospital-acquired infections, surgical site infections, patient and staff safety in mind. And then, wow, the more I got into understanding just the gross negligence and the sheer neglect around these, I really shifted from, don't get me wrong, wearing clean garments is still super important, but the integrity piece is huge. And, there's no regulations here. The EU has a completely different set of standards for these garments. And so there was a lawsuit in 2017 that I wasn't called into, but the attorney who was involved in this was spending a lot of time with me, was trying to learn from me, was trying to ask me questions. And long story short, there was like seven staff members in a peri-op environment, 5 years got cancer. And their busiest ortho doc, 46 years old, 4 kids, cancer 6 months later, dead. And so the providers sued the healthcare network. And in the brief, it said, hey, the PPE, the lead is a joke, man. It's decrepit. It's never scanned. It's dirty. We don't have enough of it. It's just a hot mess. And so when that attorney was visiting me every week, every other week, pumping me for information, I started studying and looking up the x-ray piece. And so in the United States, it's not a requirement to do what they call an annual x-ray inspection. That's a radiographic exam of those lead aprons to make sure there's no holes, there's no cracks, there's no tears. And they recommend what's called a palpation test or a feel test. And that's the 3 of us have gloves on, and we've got 1,000 aprons to do on a Saturday. And we go through with gloves and we're trying to feel to look for cracks and holes. So according to Joint Commission D&B, the governing bodies, that's okay as long as you have a process in place to check the garments. And so that really rubbed me the wrong way. And once again, Lara, with me being doing everything the wrong way as a small business person growing a small business, I bought an x-ray machine like the next week.
Well, I want a home x-ray machine now that you speak of it because I get FOMO. But so I was sitting here thinking as you were talking about this, the amount of paperwork and onerous little things that get put in because of reimbursement, right? You have to list 5 different systems and do a review of systems so that they can build a certain, it's follow the money. So if they don't have to do it and there's no fine and there's no reimbursement for it, it doesn't matter if it's the right thing to do. And I bet nobody does that palpate your lead apron thing because it never even occurred to me. So, okay, so you realize this is horrible. Now you dive in, you figure out a way to address this. And when you're thinking this, were you thinking, I'm going to build a company and exit it? I'm going to build a company and save 5 lives? Like when you started this, other than just being totally disgusted, what did you see at the end?
Yeah, I was pretty, I started this really with a lot of fire in my belly, in a good way, kind of like a righteous indignation type thing, just because, you both know this better than I do. All the regulations, there's regulations for the kick bucket. There's regulations for this.
Yeah.
And how this was just completely ignored, just baffled me. And I didn't share this story earlier, but really what my tipping point here was, I was talking with a 35-year tenured surgeon, and he told me exactly what you just said. He said, hey, man, we all know they're gross. We all know they're dirty. No one's making me do it. It's not a requirement. Dude, no one's going to pay for this. Don't quit your day job. He said, you're going to fail. Don't do this. And it really rubbed me the wrong way. And I thought, you know what? We'll see, buddy.
That's like saying sick 'em, isn't it?
Well, and then it makes you think you can't just build the product and build the service. You actually have to go all the way to the top and make this a regulation. Mm-hmm. You have to make it reimbursable. You have to, because at the end of the day, healthcare is a business in the United States. And no matter where you are, whether it's a for-profit business or not, it comes down to taking a finite amount of money and figuring out how you're spending it. I just was listening to something where the head of Jefferson Hospital System, in which you would know, they were paying for GLP-1s for their employees and insurance members, and they've had to cut that way back because it was a third at least of their 180 million in losses they took last year. So, even, and the guy he's a cardiologist, he goes, yes, of course, the long-term benefit, we'd save tons of money, but who's going to pay for it today?
Mm-hmm.
The other piece with that, Laura, is, I mentioned, hey, I went almost 2 years with no paycheck. And so what you're saying here is spot on. my business partner, he paid my mortgage a couple times. Like, I bought a house, had a baby coming, surprise, didn't know that was coming. Had quit my job as a
You
VP
didn't have
of
any
sales.
clue that that could be happening?
Well, it wasn't kind of
We
in,
can have a talk later anyway about how that
okay.
works. I work in the fertility space,
You work,
so okay, but
you
go
work
on.
in that space. You can tell me how that works. All right, cool. And so, now I got sidetracked. Where was I going?
Now mine's gone. We're asking you.
See, Laura's brain is sidetracked. This is amazing.
But I'm menopausal, so I'm allowed to just like space out and stare at you like a goat, right?
No. But we were talking
saying
about the
you took
financial
no salary for
incentive.
2 years.
Oh, yes,
It's who pays the bills today to help us with things that are
Yes.
going to help in
Okay.
patients in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, and so what really kept the fire burning though was, think about this from an economic standpoint. Just what you said. Hey, hospitals are a business. They're not going to pay for it unless they're, I hear that. And so what we were doing though, like when we first got started from a business standpoint, we would get, a hospital's inventory of their total number of garments. We would write them, a proposed service contract. Okay. High touch objects, right? The door handles, the walls, floors, ceilings, all that stuff has to get deep cleaned quarterly. So we were writing like a quarterly proposal and then had like a semi-annual proposal as a backup. And so we would write proposals for, I don't know, $30,000 or $40,000, I don't know, 500 pieces twice a year. We're not talking about, this isn't like even like the cost of capital equipment. And I would see what spending was on other things, and it just infuriated me that, and specifically the lawsuit I mentioned, in that particular case, I had been working with that woman for 6 months. I had dropped her a proposal for almost $20,000 for the entire year. And she was calling me, I can't get this approved. I can't get this approved. And then look what happened. And so, we leased a space. We had a delivery van. We were buying x-ray machines. We were gung-ho. And we may have had the cart before the horse, or we may have got out ahead of our skis. And even 13 years in now, still today, I may have lost some hair along the way. But, he'll say to me, hey, man, like along the way, did you ever think of quitting? And I was like, hell no. The more people that told me no, the deeper the fire burned.
So you have
Yeah,
defiant disorder is what it
Oppositional defiant, yeah. But no, I think what you're hitting on several
Probably.
things, both of you are, is one around, the financial incentives in healthcare really drive a lot of behaviors. But also the financial penalties can also, which are a financial incentive as well, but that also drives behaviors. And, we would never say to a hospital, don't buy cleaning material because it's not required. We would want them to buy cleaning material to clean up afterwards. And so, some of the penalties are in hospital acquired infections, surgical site infections, readmissions. And so they're in other kind of more indirect ways. But if you know that you've got equipment that is riddled with infection, let's just take the infection, the hospital acquired infection, length of stay time, surgical site infections, bounce backs, all of those sorts of things. While there is very clearly a need that we should try to be as clean as possible and sterile in an operating room environment, you've got a piece of equipment that's a personal protective equipment in a lead apron that could potentially be a vector for infection. And so
all the rest of it's disposable. So, okay, but on this thought, because carrot and stick, and now we're talking about sticks, did you ever look at the economics of saving the hospital money because they don't have to replenish the lead aprons as frequently because they stay in better condition? Because that would be a carrot. Like when you're thinking of as a business person, and this is what Adam and I, because we both, Adam was my professor in business school, so we pride ourselves on speaking both medicine and business. I don't know how clearly I speak either, but you have to explain to doctors why it can't just be what's good for patients, and you have to explain to administrators why it can't just be financial.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely, Laura. Adam, you haven't seen this yet, but you'll see it soon because it was just released. So we have an inventory management platform that we've developed So really the quick overview is we started with cleaning. We moved into doing complementary garment repairs, all those broken buckles and torn straps. We fix all that stuff. We do the annual x-ray inspection. We tag everything. We do all the compliance reporting. We have an inventory management platform. So where I'm going with that question is a great question. We just now are starting to record data for every facility. So you mentioned like Jefferson, right? So like hypothetically, let's say we were working with them. We're not yet, but I know somebody out there. So let's say we started with Jefferson. They probably have, I don't know, 4,500 pieces, 5,000 throughout the network. Everything's going to be tagged by facility, by department, by location, camo apron number 1, 2, 3. Here's a QR code. So with that piece, what we're now able to do is what you just said. Hey, we fixed the buckles on this. We sewed the straps back up. That just saved you $600. The other piece we're now doing for the network is to guide their future purchasing decisions. I play nice in the sandbox with all the manufacturers as nice as I can. And so what we're capturing, let's say I do 1,000 pieces for Jefferson. Here's the 300 you bought from this company. Here's the 300 you bought from that company. Here's what year they were made. Here's the core material on the inside. And so here's the age of the garment. So we're now giving them basically pivot tables with this data. So if I'm in supply chain or if I'm in procurement or whoever, you can start to look at what you're spending money on and to help you make some more informed purchasing decisions moving forward.
So I know we've been talking, we always say 30, 35 minutes, and then it's always like an hour later. What I'm hearing is really interesting because when Adam first said you were coming on, I was like, okay, this guy saw a problem that none of us even think about, even though it's right in front of our nose every single day at work. And it doesn't occur to you because there's so many other things you're thinking of that are life and death in the moment, right? But now what I'm hearing is you not only saw a problem, you had no model to follow, so you had to create that. And then you had to find a way the sad truth is, unless there's a financial incentive, how do you get a healthcare system to adopt it? And so I think that's a really interesting arc from recognizing something grody to having to think 10 steps ahead to who's going to pay for this and how are we going to get people to adopt it? I mean, I think your story is amazing because
it's an amazing story.
You're my hero.
Yeah, and Justin, just kind of give the audience and us kind of where you are today, because it's been a struggle, but you're successful. You're now you are convincing people that they need to clean their lead aprons, that they need to scan their lead aprons, that this is an important kind of required piece of keeping patients safe and doctors and nurses and clinicians safe.
Yeah, the garments in general, again, because this is a fun platform, and I can say this to you, garments are like a hemorrhoid for hospitals. Like they don't
They're
want
a pain in the ass. They're a pain in the ass.
But you don't want to deal with them, so you just keep tucking it back in there and using the preparation H.
You got it, man. It's like they're everyone's favorite hot potato. Like radiology directors are like, I don't know. And surgery directors are like, well, let's blame radiology. And physicists are like, oh, I'm too cool for that, man. Like nobody wants to deal with them, and so we've developed a full service platform to where, like Adam said, yes, today, we're working in about 44 different states, and we can keep them clean and repaired and compliant for your audit needs, and they're in good working condition, and we do disposal, and we represent manufacturers to sell you the new garments. And so, really, along the way, it's been a slow ride for us because we've sacrificed kind of what you'd call like operational stability or speed. Excuse me. We sacrificed speed for operational stability, meaning in the early part of the business, we had to educate and educate and educate. And along the way, you both know this. Surgeons are terrible businessmen and or businesswomen for the most part.
Most doctors are.
Yeah,
so we have people.
We can be trained, but yes.
You can be trained.
Yes,
like, you can go get a business degree, but I used to do all my budgeting in Word.
We had people coming along that would want to put money in and want to speed this up and grow it quickly. And, we never really wanted to do that because we wanted to do it the right way. There was some stuff we still had to build out in terms of scale, but we wanted to bootstrap the business for as long as we can to keep the business debt free.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done a really good job of doing that. And so at present today, where we are today is we're moving forward in different markets. And so we just secured some space in North Carolina. I think Texas will be soon to follow. And the goal there will to be have, more regional hubs. We're doing a little bit in the Northeast. As I get, more concentrated up there, we're going to have an RCS hub up there. And so it's what really started everyone. When you're like, hey, no one's going to spend money on this. How's this thing going to grow? We started doing free work, demo work. And I can't believe I have to say this still, a decade later, but still today, I can show someone 10 hospitals that everyone in America knows. Here's their before and after pictures. Here's, they've been a customer for 5 years. Here's their name and number for a reference. And then people will still say, I need you to do some of my garments. Because, Adam's hospital is different than Lara's hospital. And so I'm like, all right, man, no problem. Send me 5 garments. I'm going to clean them. I'm going to photograph them. I'm going to send it back. The light bulb's going to go off. And now we're off to the races.
Yeah, I think that story arc is so important, is the identification of the problem, the grind, of trying to assess the market, looking at a lot of the challenges, to Laura's point about the financial incentives, but now to the point where you're working in 44 states doing the work of something that is not overly sexy, but is so extraordinarily important, is making sure that garments are clean and that they're effective. And it's a critical piece of protective equipment. I mean, hell, we went through COVID really talking about how important these masks were and were they really protecting us. We need to start shifting to thinking about, we're wearing these other garments that are supposed to be protective, and are they really protecting us? And
it's interesting because I worked in the UK and they don't wear ties, they don't wear white coats,
right?
And you're actually not supposed to have clothing below the elbows, which everyone always thinks is funny because they actually don't mean you can't wear trousers and underwear.
Oh, okay, yeah,
right?
Yeah. I was wondering,
does that mean sleeves? Because it's a germ thing.
Yeah, exactly. But that is the reason why I never wore a white coat in the ER. I
loved my white coat. Well, I wonder how many people I killed.
Laura. So
I mean, not like in the immediate. I know that number.
Well, but you do wonder, like, how much of nasty, gross germs are on these things, and because you are walking patient to patient. Wait, listen, we have got just about 2 minutes left, and Justin, this has been a fascinating conversation. And who would have known, like, talking about gas station handles and lead aprons would be known.
Like, I warned you to be funny, and you delivered. That was good.
Yeah, you delivered.
I enjoyed this.
So we usually ask, like, our guests on here of, like, do you see healthcare as being unstable? And so I'm going to ask that for like a one-word answer. But then the second piece of it is, what gives you hope for the future of healthcare?
Ooh, good question.
Is it unstable?
Is it a one-word answer?
Sure.
I'll give you a one-word answer, but I have to give a quick clarifier. I did a podcast a couple months back where I said yes. And now I'm going to tell you, no, it's not unstable. And I was really inspired by this show that I just came home from. And so my answer is healthcare unstable? No. And I'm going to say I have a lot of hope right now because, hey, man, AI and robotic surgery and AI and tech and all this, it can't replace heart. And I just came from a show with like 4,000 clinicians. And the number of young people that were there, half my age and then some, who I just kept asking, how'd you get into this? What brought you here? Hey, what, and the resounding answer of caring for people, helping people, making a difference, like physically turning people's lives around. Like I was kind of wondering if the young people were shying away from healthcare. And man, I got my socks knocked off at this last conference, just with the amount of young people with hearts to serve and hearts to love. And man, so my answer has changed on that, man. I'm riding that hopeful vibe right now.
Well, no, I think it's a great, reminder that, so much of healthcare's future is, of course, dependent upon the people, but that there are some really amazing people going into what has been or is kind of a very, very challenging field. Well, listen, Justin, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate it. Lara, feel free, close us out.
Well, I'm just going to stare at the camera like a goat because I'm menopausal. No, I think that was a great conversation. I am happy to talk to you later about where babies come from. And otherwise, I think your story is fascinating. I think our job here is to make sure that we attack the other P's so that those young and hopeful doctors stay young and hopeful in caring for patients. And I'm just really thankful for you having oppositional defiant disorder and getting mad when you're told no. And thank you for what you're doing for the patients, because as we get older, I'm going to find myself on the other side more and more. So very, very thankful for that.
Absolutely.
And
well, thank you, Justin.
Stable, and so are we.
Yeah, I think
it's not anymore, but we still are. Even if healthcare is not unstable anymore, we will remain.
We are slightly unstable. I'll say slightly. Well, anyway, that was a great episode. Thank you so much, Justin. And thank you, Lara. It's good to see everyone.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for having me.
Thanks for tuning into Unstable Vitals. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow us for more unfiltered conversations on the pulse of healthcare. Connect with us on LinkedIn or visit us on unstablevitals.com to stay in the loop.